Today in the 5-minute saltwater aquarium guide, we show you how to mix up salt water for a reef tank, how long you can store it, getting that salt mix choice right from the beginning. Whether this is your first time or 100th, I guarantee you're going to learn something new today. All that's coming up. Hey, I'm Ryan, your host of BRStv in the 5-minute saltwater aquarium guide. This is a clear, simplified, and direct path to setting up a first successful reef tank. Today, we're going to mix up some salt. The cool piece here is when we're done, we're going to turn this lab-grade, pure, zero TDS water into seawater, ready for a reef tank filled with thriving corals and fish. Mixing and storing salt water is pretty simple. It's just some salt mix, RODI water, a bin, and a small mixing pump. We'll mix up properly first, share how long it can be stored, and after what we believe to be the right salt mix for most reefers. The most commonly used saltwater storage container is a Rubbermaid Brute trash can. The type of plastic that they're made out of has been used by reefers for decades and readily available at most big box hardware stores. In this case, I'd get something about as big as a tank just because you can. So 40 gallons, but at minimum 20 gallons, and make sure to get the lid. Throw a float valve on it so your RO system can fill it easily and automatically turn off when full. Note there are two containers now, one for freshwater and one for saltwater, so you'll need a push connect T and a couple RO line valves, or potentially a 3-way push connect valve to direct water between the two, depending on which one you want to fill. At this point, there are dozens of different brands of salt mixes you can choose from. The best way to put it is all the popular ones are decent options, so don't get hung up or trapped in the great salt debate. Just pick the one that speaks to you and move forward. That said, there are some distinct reasons why we selected the Tropic Marin Pro Reef for the 5-minute guide, all based on many months of experiments. In the end, TM Pro requires the least amount of effort, equipment, and energy to mix. Once mixed, stores better, meaning stable parameters and clean with no brown residue or precipitation for many weeks to months. We're also getting consistent results from bucket to bucket and even within the top to the bottom of each individual bucket. This is just a net result of using pharmaceutical-grade raw materials combined with advanced milling, mixing, and packaging methods. Like we shared last week, the water in your tank will never be better than what you start with, and TM Pro is just pretty easy to recommend. With a typical water change schedule in a tank like this, it does cost about $3 to $4 more a month than the cheapest options, but I believe worth it, particularly for newer reefers looking for the easiest road possible. Next step is the actual mixing of the salt mix and water. While most salts have somewhat different mixing procedures, some require heating, limited, or even continuous mixing. I'd read the instructions on the bucket and follow them. In this case, we're using the TM Pro, and how we're going to do it is based on our own experience using it. Just throw a flow pump like a Hydro Corelli in the bottom of the bin, get the water moving, and start adding the salt. It's about 2 to 2.5 cups per 5 gallons of water, so in a 40-gallon container, 16 to 20 cups. This is an 80-gallon bucket, so about half of it. It's important that you add the salt to nearly the full amount of water you want to make. If you add the water to the salt or make a concentrated solution, it causes crusty precipitation and creates an inconsistent mix. It's also obviously important to get the right amount of salt into the water or make the right salinity. The 2 to 2.5 cups per 5 gallons of water is a rough guideline. The way we measure salt is with a refractometer, which measures the salt in parts per thousand. Drop a couple drops of your salt water in the lens, close it, give it about a minute to temperature stabilize, and then look through it. There's an easy to read line of where you're at. If you're under 35 ppt or parts per thousand, then add some more salt. If you're over, add some more water and dilute it. There are also digital refractometers where you can drop water right on a lens and push a button to get a digital readout. In either case, in a couple-minute process, it's easy to fine-tune your salt. TM Pro had the fastest mixing of any single-step salt that we've tested here, even in a well-lit controlled environment, fully dissolved in a matter of hours. At this point, it's ready to be used. With larger 25% plus water changes, you'll want to drop in a heater and get it to the same temp as your tank, but that's probably unnecessary on smaller typical 10% water changes. Now that it's fully mixed, you may have only used some of that salt water you made up, so how long can you store it and how? This particular salt stores well for many weeks to months as long as you put the lid on to prevent most evaporation. In fact, after those first few hours, you can even pull the plug on the pump because it's fully mixed and will stay that way. Because of the proper mixing at the factory, formulation, and pharmaceutical grade raw materials, you won't see any of that brown crust, residue, or precipitate in the bin over time that's common with many salts. The chemistry levels of the salt will also be stable, so the answer is, in this case, you can store it almost indefinitely, at least in reasonable terms. In this case, with our tank size here, the 40-gallon Brute will hold enough water for 10% water changes, or 2.5 months worth of water. only mixing salt water 5 times a year is pretty attractive. Now that we got our water made, it's time to pour it into the tank. If you want to prevent the sand from blowing all over, you can pour it into a container that overflows into the tank. But this is a good time to go find that packet that came with your sand. After that, add your flow pumps and it will help remove the sandy cloud. So that is the next logical question. How do you manage water flow in a saltwater aquarium? This is something that has evolved so much since my first tank 15 years ago, and you can learn from my mistakes. The entire 5-minute guide playlist is always available here, but if you want to get flow done right on your first tank, it's just a click away.